Welcome to the Sellernomics podcast, where we share valuable tips and information in the Amazon and e-commerce space. Each week, we deliver the best interviews with some of the top Amazon personalities in the industry to help you grow your business. Today's episode is brought to you by GETIDA, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at getida.com/Sellernomics. And now, here are your hosts, Rob Stanley and Lisa Kinski.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Sellernomics. My name is Lisa Kinski and I'm here as always with Rob Stanley. And we have a very exciting guest with us here today. You guys all know her and love her. I'm just going to jump straight into it. We've 100%. Got Emma Schermer Tamir on with us from Marketing by Emma. And we're going to be talking about how to dominate Amazon with AI assisted branding. Lots of A's, but definitely a hot topic right now. Emma, welcome to the show. We're very excited to have you.
Thank you. I always love some good alliteration, so I'm here for all the A's.
I do too. It's just like a lot. It's word. I like alliteration written. Sometimes verbally though, it doesn't work out super well. And maybe we can even talk about that when it's like how to brand your brand, how to name your brand. But this is a really, really exciting topic, right? Like everybody's talking about ChatGPT and there's a lot of conversation around, should you use it for your listing, even your title, or should you use it for bullet points? I mean, let's just jump right into it. Like base feeling on using AI for listings. Are you pro? Are you con? Do you think it has maybe sometimes a place, maybe not? What's your personal opinion?
So I think it's just important to sort of establish how you're using it. So, saying something like using AI for your listing is a really broad sort of statement because you can use it for so many different facets of even something as specific as your listing. So you can use it to analyze your keywords. You can use it to do competitor research and sort of review lots of large amounts of information. You can use it for idea generation. You can use it for actual creation. So there's so many different parts of the process that you can inject AI into. And I think as a result of that, the thing that I would sort of say as a little bit of a suggestion or even perhaps a warning is that the results that you get are going to be as good as the effort and the way that you utilize these tools. And so if you're thinking that just really simply going into ChatGPT, giving a few product details and telling it to write a listing for you, it's probably not going to do a very good job. But through some different techniques, you can begin to get closer and closer to something that's workable. And then by bringing in your human creativity and your understanding of your brand and your customers and all of those things, and really using your superpowers as a human as well, you can create something really fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. What are you seeing though, Emma? So right now, a lot of people are using ChatGPT and they're using it for like their titles and descriptions. Do you think that we're going to get to a point where everybody's kind of using it, or B, it's kind of built into all these tools that people are already using? Like, is it going to become a standard?
I think it's definitely on its way to being something that's just more and more a part of what we're doing. I would say, as far as there are quite a few tools already that have begun to roll out listing optimizers or listing generators. I have to be honest, I haven't been super impressed by any of the tools that I've taken a look at yet. We actually just posted a blog post about, I think, 8 or 9 different tools and reviewing their strengths and weaknesses. And the challenge that I've seen with a lot of those tools, at least right now, is that you have very limited input that you have control over, which means that it just doesn't have enough information to be able to get you to where you want to go. But the AI is moving so quickly, and the quality of the outputs, both because the way that the technology is progressing, but also the way we as humans are learning to get the best outputs possible. I think that it's definitely on its way to becoming a standard to a certain degree. Now, where that actually fits in and how you're actually using it, again, will really determine what kind of results you're having. But I don't see it going anywhere. And I think that smart people, be they sellers or be they, people in more of the service space and creative space like us, using these tools to really turbocharge things so that you're able to be more efficient, effective, maybe even find some areas that you could be overlooking. AI is a fantastic way to sometimes kind of prod and dig into things that you might not have thought of or even dismissed and disregarded. So I guess that was sort of a long answer.
No, that was great. I mean, I love that you even mentioned that, like, it's just that it's a tool and it can help to turbocharge and kind of to be used in partnership with the humans that are behind the brand, because at the end of the day, AI can only do so much. Like, it's not going to know the GETIDA brand voice or the Marketing by Emma brand voice. And you answered a question that I had of maybe the ones that are kind of subpar right now. Is it just because they're new and don't have enough information to work off of? Like, it's going to learn more and get smarter the more people use it, right? So they'll become more sophisticated and effective in the future. At least that's my understanding of it.
I would say, yeah. So I would definitely think that part of it is that the tools themselves are still, they're new. And so they have that first mover's advantage where I would guess will be continuing to iterate to create something stronger and stronger. But no matter how strong they are, if you don't actually have the power as the person doing the creation to influence what what your brand is and what you care about, or even specific product details. A lot of the tools that are out there as of right now don't really give you the ability to give enough information just about the product, let alone about the branding. And so I think you run into getting outputs that are pretty generic, that might not really understand your product or your customer or your brand as specifically as you'd want it to. And something that's really important to remember when you're selling on Amazon, in contrast to selling on your own website, is that you have all of your top competitors that are right there. So you need to have this very strong sense of how you fit into that competitive landscape. And that's where I think a lot of these tools really fall short, because essentially they're sort of almost encouraging a more sort of like standard creation that may not have enough differentiation to be able to solidly compete against those more established sellers.
Do you see in the future Amazon coming out with its own like listing generation AI tool? Because they have all that information, right? They can see what your competitor has. They know exactly who's in your category, who's got, bids on your brand name, et cetera, on your listings. Do you ever see that in the future, maybe being like, let us build your listing for you? Like, obviously it would be a paid add-on, but like, any thoughts on that?
It's certainly possible. The benefit of them doing something like that is it would really allow them to be able to manage a lot of the kind of more problematic types of things that people sometimes do, both intentionally and unintentionally. For example, all the time, people unintentionally use language that they think isn't a problem to use, and in any other place it wouldn't be a problem to use, but because of the way that Amazon works, they just kind of rather than have room for nuance, they just say you can't say that word. So a lot of words around any kind of like toxic, toxin, bacteria, mold, a lot of those types of language can flag your listing and can create challenges for you, even if you're selling a product that you can say those things. And so a tool like that could potentially help to mitigate some of that side of things, as well as some of the other side of people maybe using promotional language or other types of things, or even just not following a streamlined formatting. You know, like they say, we don't want all caps in the bullets. Like they've said that for a few years now pretty clearly, but there are people that are still doing that. So I wouldn't say that it's outside of the realm of possibility. My assumption is that they probably have more impactful things that they would be working on as first before rolling anything out like that. But again, this whole space just moves so quickly. A year ago, I was at, or really more like a year and a half ago, I was at an event that was talking about a lot of the different AI tools that were out. And at the time, the results that I was seeing just from basic content creation stuff, I was like, wow, we're still so far away from AI being able to deliver anything that any business would really want to be using without substantial revising. And, you know, in less than a year and a half, we've already come so far to where a lot of times through the different manipulating of how you prompt and how you sort of feed some background information to something like ChatGPT, you can get pretty solid chunks of things that you're still going to want to rework, but the speed at which that has improved is just mind-boggling. So
yeah. One of the things I've seen, like in general marketing, like creating keywords, let's say for YouTube, it's not been very good at it. I mean, I'm putting in really, really strict and really like specific code in, right? Like, and prompting, and it just spits it out. And now I know the algorithm, and I know there's certain ways I can manipulate certain SEO keywords on YouTube that I can get a video to show up or come up easier under certain keywords. And I think that same thing's going to happen kind of with the Amazon side, right? So you're going to have to know some of those keywords that you're going to need. Just going and saying, hey, write me an SEO keyword for the following product, it's going to spit out a bunch. And yeah, that might be one that's better than what you came up with, but is it the right one? Does it have the right keyword? Maybe you're getting really a keyword that's fifth on the list and not the first keyword. So that definitely, there's some limitations to this. And a lot of the limitation is, like you said, what goes in comes out. If you're not putting in the right information, and even if you are putting in the right information, it's limited on what it can spit out. What I'd like to know though, and I don't know if you've had a chance, is other than ChatGPT, is there any other sort of AI based, things you've seen that maybe could help Amazon sellers, or maybe they're not quite there yet, but as they get better, they'll be able to help Amazon sellers?
Well, there are what feels like an infinite amount of tools. Truly, I feel like every time I blink, I add 10 more tools to the list of things that I want to check out. So I would say that probably whatever you're looking to do, there is a tool or a set of tools that are already out there that can do what you're looking to do. So everything from, video editing and creation to, we've all seen the imagery. And what's interesting to me about the imagery is I've tried to play around quite a bit with the different, things like Midjourney and Dolly, and I've gotten really horrific output. But what I've learned is that, again, it's really just how you learn to prompt these tools is going to impact what you're able to get. And sometimes there are shortcuts that you can take. And so there's somewhere that you can go called promptbase.com. And it is, you buy prompts for things that you're looking to create. So they have prompts both for the visual side as well as for the text side. And so it's a way of really being able to kind of speed up instead of trying to experiment with a million different ways of asking for something, you can see the thing that you like, buy the prompt for a few dollars, and then be able to create and then iterate off of that. And so I've seen really very high quality, hyper realistic images created very simply in that way. And you can also use it for the text side of things. There's also a plugin that I like with Google Chrome, which I feel like I just need to give the disclaimer. I've done my best to research that these tools are safe, but I have not dug into all of the terms of service of any of these tools. And so I just would suggest that before downloading anything to your computer, that you do a little bit of research on your own to make sure that it is something that you feel comfortable putting onto your computer. Because I just saw an article yesterday that a lot of these extensions have malware in them. And, it's just because there is such an explosion happening right now of technology, it's not always clear who the good and bad actors are. So I just want to put that tiny little asterisk there. But there's a extension for ChatGPT that I really like, and it's called AI PRM, P as in pineapple.
Yeah, pineapple.
And then M as in Mary. And so AI PRM, and it's a prompt, a list of a bunch of different prompts. And so rather than figuring out exactly how you need to word everything, you can just search. You can see how many people have upvoted it and said that it's a good prompt. People even write little comments on it. So you have some validation of whether this is a helpful prompt or not. You click it, you put in your information, and then it prompts ChatGPT. It also works with, I think, some of the imaging tools as well. I haven't experimented with those as much. So that's another thing that you can use to speed up your prompting skills or kind of shortcuts, so you don't need to, spend hours learning how to be a super sophisticated prompt engineer.
That's amazing. So those are all great tools to list. And also on the marketingbyemma.com website, you guys have that blog with the best AI Amazon listing optimization tools. I mean, I'm looking through it now. This is a really thorough breakdown. So we'll be sure to give the link to the article in the episode so people can check it out. We're going to take a quick second to hear from our sponsor. And then I want to dig deeper into using AI for branding specifically, how to come up maybe with a name and brand colors. I'm interested to see how maybe sellers are using this for their first launch, but we will talk about that after a quick break.
Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
All right, you guys head over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics to get your first 400 in FBA reimbursements free. Back on with Emma Schermer Tamir talking about how to dominate on Amazon using AI-assisted branding. So Emma, for a seller that is launching their first product, can they use AI to help them come up with a brand name? And I'm going to be a little upset if the answer is yes, only because when Francois and I were naming our last podcast, it took weeks for us to come up with name ideas, and then even longer to just pare down into which one that we liked the best. And I think if we had a tool for it, it would have made things so much easier. So is this something that sellers can use to come up with a brand name and colors to speed up the process? And is it quality that they're going to get from these tools?
So I feel a little bit like a broken record. I would say yes, and you're going to want to really make sure to both do your due diligence. So it's not checking the suggestions that it's going to be giving you through the trademark database, blanking on the link that you can go to for that.
USPTO.
Yes, there we go. You should always do that anytime you're wanting to name something so that you don't get yourself into hot water. And maybe even check with a lawyer as well. Trademarks are by no means my expertise. But one of the things that I find AI to be best for is stimulating creativity and getting some ideas onto paper. Because I think one of the hardest things, no matter what it is that you're creating is staring at a blank page, because there's just a certain amount of overwhelm and anxiety that can come from that. And it can come whether you're writing a blog or trying to think of a brand name or anything else like that. And so use ChatGPT to maybe just help give you some ideas. And even if you don't use any of the ideas it's giving you, it can help you start to think in different ways. Because like, I don't know if you ever have this experience, but sometimes you're talking about something with someone and maybe not even doing a formal brainstorm, and they'll say something, and all of a sudden, even though maybe what they said isn't a good idea or isn't related to exactly what you're trying to figure out, all of a sudden the gears just click into place and you're like, oh yeah. So that's one thing you can do. I haven't experimented with this, but you can even use ChatGPT to create a like kind of council that you brainstorm with. So you could say like, I want Oprah Winfrey and I don't know,
Gary Vee,
Steve, and Steve
Wonderful.
Jobs. And they're all, my board of advisors, and we're brainstorming how would they suggest that I do X, Y, and Z. So you can do a lot of those. It's like I think what I've been learning the more that I've dug into this, and it's really no different than anything that you're learning, is when you first kind of dip your toes into something like ChatGPT, most people, I think their concept of how it can be used is so narrow. And it's really just the tip of the iceberg. And it can be used for so much. So can it be helpful for brainstorming brand names? Absolutely. Can it be used for figuring out even color values to use for that brand? Without a doubt. One of the things that I think can be really helpful when it comes to branding, and it can speed things up quite considerably, is you can actually have it build out customer avatars and a brand avatar, and you can seed it with all of this information before you start asking it to create anything. So what you can do is you can have it create the customer avatar, you can build out your brand profile, and then you can say, based on this brand profile, write 10 taglines that would excite Lisa, if Lisa is my customer avatar that I've already built out. And so that's where you can start to get some really interesting outputs that are more than just this kind of generic sounding stuff. Still always encourage you to iterate, always encourage you to, A/B test and to really be thoughtful about what you're using before just slapping it out into the world. But if you seed it with that information, all of the things that you create within that chat, and you can say, based on this, and kind of keep reminding it. It's in some ways, it's kind of like talking to a human. So it can get distracted by the additional things that you're doing. So you need to remind it of what you want. You need to not ask it to do too much at any given time, because it'll start, it'll weight the first part of what you're asking stronger than the other parts. So that's why sometimes if you give it 20 different things to do, and if you feel like it didn't really fully do what it was supposed to do, it probably just almost got distracted by some of the things over others. And so you can use that chat then to, if you want to go back and create a blog post, or if you want to create some social content, and you can really use that to begin to build out a more consistent brand identity that's then giving you some continuity across all the things that you are creating.
Yeah, there's definitely been some limitations. So I was using it to look up possible .com sites. And I was kind of like, okay, which kind of is a way to go about getting a brand also, right? You want to own usually the .com or or .io, depending on which way you want to go with it. So I was actually telling it to come up with these names based on the following parameters for I don't know, to say it was a podcast or something like that. And, check and tell it that the .com has to be available or the domain has to be available. And it came up with a bunch, and there was a few really good ones in there. Well, when I went and actually checked, the .com sites were taken. So it wasn't, it has limitations on what it could do. And there was really good names too. And I was like, oh, these are great names. But like you were saying earlier, some of the names it suggested, I was like, oh, how about if I took that, put it together with this and came up with this name, or it sparked these other ideas. And then when it comes to prompting, I personally like learnprompting.org. So if you want to learn what prompting is, how to use it, there's also suggestions in there for marketing and e-commerce and all kinds of stuff in there. And then there's some great, like Futurepedia is an AI tool directory. There's some great tool directories out there, but I love where you're going with it. There's so much we could do. And I'm going to trip you out with this video I just saw that they had a person go, there's a website you go and you create an avatar of yourself. So it's your actual avatar. Then they went over to, I think it was Studio 11 or something like that, and they cloned their voice.
11 Labs. Yeah.
11 Labs. Then they went over and had like a Chat GPT create an entire script. Then they had their own avatar in their own voice read the whole script. And it was like crazy that they're like, think about it. You could almost do an entire podcast without an actual person. You just write the whole podcast or have somebody Chat GPT write it for you. But let's talk more about like where are we kind of going with this? I mean, you're seeing such a substantial change, let's say even the last year. What are you kind of thinking, or what's your thoughts on where AI might be another year from now?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not a futurist, so I don't trust my crystal ball skills to make any strong predictions. I think what I can say is that without a doubt, AI, even though it maybe feels like some of the other technology and business fads that have kind of passed through over the last however many years, this is very different, and I think a pretty impactful way. Mm-hmm. And I think it's already becoming, and a lot of big businesses have been using AI for years. So not all of this is new. What's new is that the average person now has access to be able to use and build off of AI. And I think that's what's really changing very significantly and very quickly. And so I think that it is doing yourself a massive disservice to bury your head in the sand and say, there's really, nothing here, and I'm just going to kind of continue on my way. I think that people are already figuring out how to use AI to go faster, to think bigger, to achieve a lot. And so if you want to continue to stay competitive, I do think that it's really in your best interest to get familiar with these tools and to start thinking about ways that you can use them to improve your life. I feel like I can't even fully fathom the ways that this long term is going to change our world and our society. But I do know that within my world, more specifically, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, and I've also seen some other people talking about this. I even just saw, oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Prophecy.
Chad Rubin.
Yep.
Yesterday, he said, word of the year, spam. And I couldn't agree more, because this gives everybody the ability to create massive amounts of mediocre. And so while it's leveling the playing field and allowing people to create, a better low end of things, it also allows for people to create massive amounts of noise. And so I think it's going to be even more important to be creative with what can you do to stand out what can you do to create meaningful relationships so that people still want to be interacting with you and opening your emails and engaging with your content? And what can you do to really continue to differentiate yourself so that you're not just kind of swallowed up by all of the noise that I think is yet to come, because these are powerful tools and people will find good ways to use them and not so good ways to use them.
Yeah, that's what makes me a little nervous about it. Just as an aside, for one, I think you're right. I do think that this is going to have a really, positive impact to a lot of these business owners. But I see like the hype around ChatGPT being really similar to Clubhouse when it came out. And now you don't hear about Clubhouse at all anymore. And it was like, if you're not on Clubhouse, who are you? So we got on it and we tried to get engaged, and now it's kind of fizzled out. So it's really hard to determine if something is a fad or if something is really a game changer in the moment, because you don't know until after it's happened. And then sometimes you're too late to get on the bandwagon. It doesn't seem like with AI, it's going to be the same, because it'll always be there and always be able to be helped. It's not going to be like getting in on the first wave of Bitcoin or anything like that. But that's always been my concern, is like the nefarious ways people would use AI. But in terms of Amazon, I mean, I think you're right. Even if they come up with their own tool that would help them to mitigate kind of the stuff that the platform doesn't like, or some of the stuff that's less savory. Is that the right term to use there? But yeah, Rob, any last questions before we hear about marketing by Emma and how folks can work with her, because she's just such a splendid woman.
She is awesome. I actually agree with you that AI's like it's a tool, it's a helper. It can give you shortcuts, but you got to still know what you're doing. You got to still understand if it's outputting incorrect information. I see it being around. I'm almost utilizing it daily for marketing and different rewrites of things that I come up with. So it's definitely something I think it's going to be around. I personally disagree with Lisa. I think that it's not a fad. I think definitely Clubhouse was a fad, but
that's what I said. I didn't necessarily say that it was a fad, but I think that's maybe why some people are hesitant, because it's hard to tell if it is or not.
True.
So
yeah,
and we're already so busy. How can we pay attention to another thing? So
yeah, and the way it keeps evolving. I mean, the way it keeps evolving is getting easier and easier to use. It's spitting out better and better content. But enough of that. Let's talk about Emma. Emma's been around a long time in this industry, and definitely knows her way around marketing. Emma, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about how did you come up with marketing by Emma? What got you into this space? Help us out here.
Yeah. So my husband, Ares, and I started Marketing by Emma in 2016, which is kind of a while. Feeling very much like a senior, for the better.
A veteran in this space.
Yeah, there we go. That's a much better word. Definitely a veteran in this space. Have seen a lot. Have seen many ways that Amazon has evolved. And I think that this AI stuff is really exciting and will continue to evolve alongside of that. So we started Marketing by Emma to really provide something that at the time didn't really exist, which was helping businesses selling on Amazon create really effective copywriting with a clear brand identity so that they were able to stand out and connect with their customers. That was very much at the time where we were starting to see a shift that prior to that, you didn't really need to do anything. You could just do some keyword research, find a gap of what didn't exist, put it online, have a terrible listing. Even there weren't that many keyword tools to do very sophisticated keyword research. So as things changed, it wasn't just that there was more competition. It's also Amazon gave sellers an increasing amount of tools that they can use to be able to be more competitive. So I think one of the more recent things that we've seen with that is making Premium A+ something that is available to people that have had at least 12 pieces of branded content approved in the last year. Premium A+ is essentially a more robust version of standard A+ content that has a lot more modules. Many of them are very dynamic. You can have video, and they're also full screen. This used to only be available to a very select group of sellers, and it was very, very expensive. So it's currently free. And you can do some pretty cool things with it. And I think it gets you closer and closer to feeling like your listing is actually your own website instead of having this really clunky looking thing that, Amazon kind of forces you to make. So yeah, that's, I guess, kind of the evolution of things. We love working with businesses that are either, selling in other places and trying to figure out how to navigate the world of Amazon, or people that are launching and directly onto Amazon and an Amazon first or only business, and helping them figure out what it takes to be able to dominate their competition, because it is very competitive out there. And this is one of the few tools that you have to be able to help customers decide whether they should choose you or one of your other competitors that are out there.
100%. It is a jungle out there, not to quote Monk, but all right, you guys, if you're interested in learning more about Emma and her team and how you guys can work with them, you can visit marketingbyemma.com. And if you have any questions, you can email hello@marketingbyemma.com. So Emma, thank you so much for being on with us today and sharing all this great knowledge. And we'll definitely be sure to link the blog post in the article in the episode, because it's chock full of good stuff. I mean, it's got like user friendliness and overall rating, and it's awesome. So we'll definitely be sure to link that as well.
I'm glad
in addition to the tools.
I'm glad you're already getting some interesting insights from it. I should also mention we're always happy to offer a free listing analysis. So if you're not sure if you're doing what you need to be doing and you'd like us to take a look at it, we've worked with over 1,500 businesses from all over the world. So we really know what an effective listing should look like. And we're happy to put some eyes on yours and see whether there's anything you can do to make it have even stronger likelihood of getting you towards your goals.
Incredible,
Nice.
Generous offer. Emma, thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And thank you, everybody who tuned in and listened. We will see you on the next one.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Sellernomics podcast. Special thanks to our sponsor, GETIDA. Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at getida.com/Sellernomics. Be sure to join us again next week for more great tips on how to grow your business. And thanks again for listening.